This episode of the Amateur Traveler podcast is sponsored by Smart Travel, a new podcast from the smart people at NerdWallet. From choosing the right travel card to dodging hidden fees, Smart Travel helps your money go further. Literally. They cover all things travel finance, like which travel cards are actually worth the annual fee and which just look shiny, how to plan group trips that don't bust your budget or your friendships, which flight deals are actually deals and which are clickbait, and when it makes sense to book your flights with cash instead of points. So they cover all the stuff we don't. And there's a reason for that. I don't know these subjects as well as the smart people at NerdWallet do. So if you're looking for information about financing your travels, check out Smart Travel. Travel smarter and spend less with the help from NerdWallet. Follow Smart Travel wherever you get your podcasts. And thanks to Smart Travel and NerdWallet for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler. Fall is in full swing, and it's the perfect time to refresh your wardrobe with pieces that feel as good as they look. Luckily, Quince makes it easy to look polished, stay warm, and save big without compromising on quality. Quince has all the elevated essentials you need for fall. Think 100% Mongolian cashmere for only $50. Washable silk tops and skirts, and perfectly tailored denim, all prices that feel too good to be true. Is this the time for you to get a new wool coat? They look designer level but cost a fraction of the price. By partnering directly with ethical top-tier factories and cutting out the middleman, Quince delivers luxury quality pieces at half the price of similar brands. This might be the time for me to update my fall wardrobes and pick up a new sweater, since I have some trips to cold weather destinations coming up. Keep it classic and cozy this fall with long-lasting staples from Quince. Go to quince.com/traveler for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/traveler to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/traveler, and thanks to Quince for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler. Amateur Traveler, episode 960. Today, Amateur Traveler talks about penguins and giant tortoises, a chaotic fish market, sharks under the boardwalk, and a sea lion in the pool as we do a budget travel trip to the Galapagos. This is Chris Christensen from Amateur Traveler. Let's talk about the Galapagos. I'd like to welcome back to the show Michael from Rochester, who was on recently talking about Machu Picchu and has come back to talk to us about the Galapagos. Michael, welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much, and honored to be here and looking forward to this episode.
I very much enjoyed the episode we did before, so I'm looking forward to it too. Now, you had a different pitch for me about the Galapagos. We've done the Galapagos 3 different times on the show, but you did something a little different.
Yeah, I listened to those episodes, and something that I felt could help listeners who are interested in this type of excursion, adventure, is to do a land-based tour primarily versus the live aboard. Primarily cost. It is a very expensive trip to do the cruises, and I had looked at it in the past, and it was something, this is the upper echelon bucket list for me. This was one of 3 trips that I wanted to take over the course of my lifetime, and one of the obstacles was price. And I just felt that it shouldn't be exclusive. There has to be a way that I can get there economically and participate with much of the same activities. And I decided to look into a land tour version. And it was such a great success that I wanted to share it with other people who are thinking, maybe I can put this back on my list because maybe it isn't as expensive and out of reach as I once thought.
Excellent. And I'm curious, what are the other 2 trips that are on your bucket list there?
Oh, Machu Picchu, the Sacred Valley, was one, so that's completed. And of course, I came up with this list when I think I was 12 years old, just interested. And I stuck with it. And the other one is the Giza Plateau, which my wife and I were planning on going this October, but we're going to go to Ireland instead, with the World Theater being what it is. We're just going to wait maybe a year or so and see how things open up. So hopefully I'll be able to complete that next year.
Oh, got it. Oh, actually, it's interesting. I wouldn't hesitate to go to Egypt right now, but that's just me. Excellent. Why should someone go to the Galapagos?
It is a world location that should not be missed. And you do not have to be an animal enthusiast or safari adventure type person. That certainly helps to have an open mind about ecology and conservation, but they really roll out the red carpet for what I believe the world could move forward to, taking our entire ecosystem into consideration with how we live our life. It is such a model. The animals, the marine life, their ecosystem, it's such a fragile snippet of time in our world. And if you have the opportunity to witness it firsthand in person, it truly is something that should not be missed. It's a marvel.
Excellent. What itinerary are you going to recommend for us?
Okay, basically a 1 week itinerary. Of course, it is a territory of Ecuador. Your point of interest or entry would be via Quito or city in the south, Guayaquil. And my wife and I traveled to Ecuador and spent about 8 days on mainland Ecuador between Quito and a small mountain town called Otavalo, which was a wonderful component of our trip. And then the second half of the trip was the Galapagos. So we flew from Quito to Baltra on Santa Cruz, which is the greatest inhabited island in the archipelago.
And in the
And
center also.
it is, yeah. Yeah. The other one is San Cristobal, which is not too far. But in terms of amenities and activities that are offered, San Cristobal is a little bit smaller. So we chose, if this was to be our only trip there, we would go to Santa Cruz and spend most of our time in Puerto Ayora as our base. If we do go back, which I'm highly considering, we're going to go through Guayaquil and go to San Cristobal this time so we can see some of the other locations there. The one thing I can suggest that would help is if you're going through Quito, is to travel to Baltra when you're arranging your tickets. Go the next day. After a long day of travel, get there the next day. I don't think it can be done in one day because of the times, as with your other shows, that everything is highly restricted in terms of number of flights, number of people entering the Galapagos. It's a World UNESCO Heritage Site. Actually, I think it was the first one ever deemed that title. And they really put limitations on so that we have a kinder footprint for the area. So flights are limited, seats are limited. Some planning is recommended ahead of
Sure.
time. And if you go through Guayaquil, prices will be a little bit cheaper and you're not going to have to deal with any altitude issues. And that's why I brought that up. So that's,
Got
yeah, yeah. So we went through Quito, we spent some time there, and my wife experienced some climatization issues for a couple of days. So I would suggest you're flying in, stay at the airport in Quito, there's some very nice hotels there, and then you fly out the very next day to the Galapagos. So day one in the Galapagos would be in Puerto Ayora, and that is going to be your base. And just a little history about that town in itself in relationship to doing this for a land-based opportunity is they have every amenity that you would need, from clothing, from food, from places to stay. Hospitality-wise, it is, I wouldn't say it's a modern city, but they have modern conveniences. And seeing that, if I were to say like-minded people making this trip who are interested in nature and definitely the animals and marine life and spending their time viewing and being a part of that, they have everything that you need. I was talking to a friend. They said, "My God, what is it like there? Were you intense or were you?" I said, "No, this is not a safari that you're going on." And they have every single convenience that you
it.
need. Day one is really familiarizing yourself with the local culture there, taking advantage of the sites, which there are many, many things to do in Puerto Ayora. Everything is walkable. Great town to sightsee. They have a wonderful fish market. And if you were to YouTube the fish market in Puerto Ayora, you'll see the famous seal that attends every day waiting for food. It's just a different fish market than you would see like in Seattle or New York City. Everything is taken right off of the boat, and you're there to witness it all, their daily catch, and the frigate birds swooping in, and the pelicans begging, and the seals. There's just a cacophony of noise and commotion. It's just an interesting thing to see. But the town itself has a main drag called Avenida Charles Darwin, and that has the boutique hotels, the restaurants, some clubs, but everything from art galleries to souvenir shops. And it's about a mile long, and it just has everything that you would need. So even packing can be a lighter because you can also purchase or rent some equipment that I'll get to a little bit later. But day
Okay.
one is visiting the fish market, orienting yourself to the town. They have a malecon there, like many cities in Latin America. It's a
Walkway
boardwalk
along
that,
the water.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. At night, they have the lights from the covered areas that you can see them. Sharks come in at night and you can just see them looking over the railing. But it gives you a sense of the culture there that I think can be missed because if you're on a cruise, you're limited to the activities that they're doing during the day. Or if you stop into Puerto Ayora, it is to then go up to see the Tortoise Preserve, the Darwin Research Center, and quickly do those activities. But you miss the people along the way, which I think is also important.
If we go back to the last episode we did, which was my trip to the Galapagos, normal trip there with the liveaboard that I was doing, which was with Quasar, you would have about an afternoon in town to do shopping
Hmm.
and things like that. It would be one of the
Right.
last activities of the trip. Now, I was there as COVID was winding down, so we were not allowed to. We were not
Okay.
allowed to interact with the locals on either end of the trip because of the timing of my trip. It was odd that way. But so I have never seen the town, even though if you did the same tour I did today, you would get some chance in the town. But and
Yeah, I would say
also in
it's
the San Cristobal at the beginning of the trip, we didn't get any chance to interact. We got
okay.
to drive through the town on a bus and see what we might have seen.
I see. Yeah, yeah. And there is a lot to be missed in that respect. You're just seeing the cultural side of it.
Right.
And certainly an afternoon will not do it justice because there's so much to see there anyway. But that in that first day, there's little pockets in between them because it's right along the water. So you literally could step in between any building or any intersection and they have beach or water access. And it does take a day or so to get used to the animal life that is there because and I know that you've seen it as well. You're literally stepping over animals that we're so used to animal life scurrying away from us, just fleeing upon the sight of us. And they just could care less that you're there. The hazards of Puerto Ayora or other areas in the Galapagos that you have to watch where you're sitting down because that seat may be taken by a sea lion or even underneath the bench. And it's interesting when you're first exposed to that, stepping over the marine iguanas. And now I know for some people that might not be fascinating, but you'll learn to have that right of way. So you're respecting their space as well, give them a wide berth. But it's not uncommon. In one of our hotels we stayed at, my wife was in the pool and suddenly she was not alone because a sea lion decided to go for a swim too. And I never thought I'd see my wife in an aquarium before, but of course she loved the experience too. But we quickly got out of the pool and there's another one sitting on the lounge chair next to us. It's just an interesting way of life, but there's a mutual respect that you pick up quickly to give a wide berth and just to make sure that there's mutual respect for animals and tourists. That really is your first day because there's a couple of
Okay.
beaches that are walkable to. Orient yourself with the town. If there's any supplies that you want to pick up, that would be the day to do it. But there's a lot to see there. Worth it. I wouldn't suggest trying to squeeze in the research center on that first day. If you like to go through events like that, you could do it in an hour or so if you just want to go in, take a look. But if you really
And
want
you're
the
talking about
history,
the Darwin
the
Research Center
Darwin
there.
Research Center, yeah. If you want to give it a fair shake, I would say at least an hour and a half or so. So that could also be an option, but you're going to want to have something to eat, get located in your hotel, and enjoy the Malecon, especially at night too. It's great to see everybody.
I'm going to move us along to the second day. What are we going to do the second
You
day?
got it. The second day is going to the El Chato Tortoise Preserve. And I know you've been to that as well as the Los Gemelos and the lava tunnels as well. Usually
Yep.
they lump that into the same because if you hire a taxi to take you there, you can hit those three. And it's great because the guide is included, being, I think, about 98% of the entire Galapagos area is a national park, so you have to have a guide
Yep.
with you. You can't just
Oh, sure. Yeah.
so that's important to note. There are places you can go, but as soon as you get to the entrance to many places, you have to hire a guide. And nothing is egregious in terms of cost. And you're
Hmm.
going to learn more that way anyway, but it will limit you
And
if you don't
guides are
choose to go that road.
wonderful because you have to be accredited to be a guide in the national park. And so
Yep,
they are
absolutely.
knowledgeable. Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of the guides come from mainland Ecuador. So
Hmm.
there's some competition now with the level of education and experience that these guides have prior to coming there. So our entrance, talking about El Chato Tortoise Preserve, and that was one of our highlights. How can you go to the Galapagos and not see a Galapagos tortoise? You came by boat. We flew into Baltra, and then we took a little ferry and then a cab to the southern point, which is Puerto Ayora. But on our trip, up ahead in the road, we saw that our driver hit his wheel and was a little frustrated, and he had to stop the car because there's this giant tortoise sitting in the middle of the road. And of course, my wife and I jumped out of like Santa Claus has arrived, and we took some pictures, and it was just amazing. This thing was the size of a VW bug. It was just enormous. I think I sent you a picture that you can share one. If not, I'll find one of the one on the road. But they're just like that, like driving in a rural area in the United States, cows, livestock on the side of the road. Here you see these giant tortoises on the side of the road. It just takes a lot getting used to, but it's so exciting to have that experience. So I would focus on that for day two because it's about 40 minutes away. It's going to take a few hours to do that when you come back.
Hey, it's Paris. You know, I love sparkly things, right? Like stars. Duh. And thanks to Hilton and AutoCamp, I just slept under them. Picture me serving looks by the fire outside my luxurious Airstream, making s'mores with the kids, while a national park is our backdrop. The great outdoors meets Hilton hospitality. That's hot. Explore all the new ways to stay at Hilton.com. Hilton for the stay.
Introducing the perfect companion to your morning listening routine. AG1's clinically backed formula is now flavor-packed with 3 new delicious flavors: tropical, berry, and citrus. Start the day on a high note with probiotics that taste like the tropics. Mix it up with micronutrients that taste like berry or citrus. And take it all the way back with the classic, AG1 Original, with notes of pineapple and vanilla. Do your health a flavor, or 4, with AG1 Next Gen, the daily health drink. Learn more at drinkag1.com.
There is one thing I want to add to that. When you go to the waterfront next to the Malecon, and this is just a little insider tip, there is a market that is there, and I have it written down. I'll come up with the name of the market. It's just a grocery store, but the grocery store has a mezzanine to it, and they have a balcony, and over that balcony, you see the entire harbor, which is an absolutely beautiful panoramic view. I sent you a picture. It's the one where you can see Santa Cruz, the sign at the base. That's the viewpoint from this market. And they have wonderful baked goods and prepared foods and everything that you would need if you want to do that type of thing for lunch, if you're gone on a trek for the day. But what you see below is where everything comes in. It's the main port of entry for Santa Cruz and Puerto Ayora. So you're going to see the fishermen come in with their catch, and every single fish is cataloged, which is just amazing to sit there and witness all of this. You can see the abundance that's brought in, the variety of fish, and the limits to what they have. And then you see things that people have purchased from mainland Ecuador. It's not uncommon to see someone walking in with a swordfish or a mahi, and then the next person walks in with a futon. It's just everything is coming in all at once, but it is worth your time to witness that. The attention to detail that is given to catalog every single thing taken from the sea, because they have
Hmm.
limits on everything. Just another interesting aspect of the day. Then the rest of the day would be going out for dinner. I do want to give you a tip. Binford Street, Binford, and Avenida Baltra, that is where all of the local restaurants are. And
Okay.
when I say all of there may be 8 to 10 of them on both of those streets. I would, as a tourist, I would stay off of Avenida Charles Darwin. Besides just walking through, you're going to get, of course, like any location, a better meal a couple blocks off. You're going to
Okay.
have the comida corriente, the meal of the day, and your prices are going to be different. But they have all the seafood that was caught that day laid out. You can pick what you would like to eat. And they give you a price right there, so there's no confusion afterwards. So you're going to end up with a fantastic catch of the day meal, lobster or whatever fish that they have for $10 to $15. So definitely worth there. My wife and I ate there several times. And they also have the local Ecuadorian fare as well. So that caps off day 2 right there. Day 3 is Tortuga Bay Beach. Have you had a chance to go there when you visited? Because I don't think you would have enough time to get to that.
No, we did not.
Okay. It's listed as like the marquee beach of the Galapagos, just white sand, beautiful beach similar to Siesta Key in Florida, with the exception that you're going to see more seals and iguanas than people there. It's about a 1.5 mile walk. Very easy walk. It's done with concrete pavers from town. You have to register, and there's a person there with a little book that you just register your name, and you take the beautiful walk out to this beach. And it is just a remarkable area. The landforms with the lava rocks and the abundance of wildlife that you will see there. Birds, marine life. If you want to snorkel, it's also a decent spot. If you walk the length of the beach, which is probably a half mile or so, maybe 3/4 of a mile, the bay turns into a lagoon off to the left, and they have kayak rentals there. Very inexpensive, $10 for as long as you want. And you can go out there and there's no shortage of sea turtles and rays and baby reef sharks. Smaller marine life come in for the protection of the lagoon from larger predators. But a nice way to spend a couple of hours having that experience and being that close to wildlife. So definitely that is a highlight of the island. And my last day, I actually left a little time because you might want to go there a second day. Interesting, you cannot bring anything out there. There's no amenities. You can bring a small cooler, but because of the walk, it's tough to drag anything behind you. But a little backpack with some water will suffice.
Okay.
It's not something that you need to be physically fit to do. Anybody can walk out there and spend time there, but be prepared because they're limited on amenities for the day. I would say that's top 3 of the island. And at the end of the day, around 5 o'clock, they shoo you out. No one's allowed on the beach because it is a national park. So the guides will come and they'll tell you, don't touch the sea turtles, the babies that you see on the beach. And they're there to also educate you, which is interesting. It's not just to police the area, but they also provide you with any information that you need. So well worth it. I included a picture that you can post of a marine iguana running across this beautiful, expansive, gorgeous beach. 4th day, I would suggest taking a day trip off of the island. And this is Bartolome. I don't recall. Did you go to Bartolome? I would say it's the quintessential viewpoint of the Galapagos. It's Pinnacle Rock.
So.
Master and Commander was filmed there with Russell Crowe. You'll recognize that scene. That's when Darwin gets off the boat there and does his research. The listeners can YouTube that little snippet from Master and Commander. And that's that classic view. I also included it with the photos. Great day, economical, probably $200 per person if you're going to do an excursion. That might be your splurge day. The snorkeling is amazing. They take you right to that Pinnacle Rock and virtually jump right off right there. And the experience I had there was I wasn't in the water for more than a couple of minutes. I was adjusting my mask and got back into the water, and I was met nose to mask with the sea lion. Whiskers were touching, but she was so interested in what I was, and then just completely ignored me like I didn't exist. But we did see Galapagos penguins there. We couldn't get too close with them. They were nesting, but they are the northernmost species of penguin. And it was interesting to see them. Again, turtles, an abundance of sea life that you're going to see and encounter. Water isn't deep enough for the sharks there. Plus, the sharks want to stay where the bait fish are. So you don't need to be worried about that. I heard your comments about swimming with sharks, and I'm in full agreement. I have a lot of respect for sharks, especially spending a lot of time in Florida. And I think given space, it's worth giving them a wide berth as well. But you're not going to see that on a snorkeling trip unless you specifically want to. And then they'll take you out to areas to see hammerheads and that type of thing. But it wasn't one of my interests.
And what Michael is referring to is, so I have swum with nurse sharks before, and they are small and not intimidating. But when I was in the Galapagos, we had 2 choices. We could go to Destination A, where we could potentially see hammerhead sharks, and those are intimidating. 6 foot long hammerhead sharks, as I recall. I went to Destination B, where I got to see fur seals. So it was a choice. I don't regret my choice. It was fun to see for seals, but those who went the other way didn't regret it either.
Yeah, yeah. A suggestion I would give if you're going to book a tour, and there are several islands that you can visit. We went to Floriana
Yeah.
one day, and we had a great experience there snorkeling. Not as much on the island, but it gives you a little taste of what the topography is because during seasons like the wet season, you're going to have more of almost a rainforest feel there because it's one of the older islands versus the newer ones that are all volcanic rock at this point. You could go to Pinzon,
And
Santa
I want to
Fe.
say the newer islands are in the west and the older islands are in the east.
Exactly.
And my trip was to the eastern islands rather than the western ones.
Okay.
Because when you're on a boat, you basically do typically either the east or the west.
And I don't think we need to talk much about the restrictions with the boats and the limitations because it was already touched on with your other guests. But I will say because of that, if you look at Viator and you see what the availability is, or another booking agent like that, I'm not touting them, just something like TripAdvisor, and you see what's available in terms of availability, you might want to check on that a few days ahead of time, or that day one when you arrive. If you go to, like any other tourist street, Avenida Charles Darwin, Binford, Baltra, they will have tour agencies with signs out front, and they'll tell you how many spots are left. And that isn't like booking a hotel room where they say there's only 2 rooms available. There's more than that. But when you're looking
I feel like you have some trust issues here, Michael.
I do. Especially when it involves travel. I take it seriously. But if you want to be gone for the day, there are strict limitations, not only to the number of people, but the number of boats and then the size of the boats, because the smaller boats can go, I don't know if it's once a day, the larger boats can go a different time of day. They really don't like to cross paths with that footprint, and he was very conscious about it. So you might get there and want to do something and not have the choice or the availability. So I would check ahead of time, and if you could book one, it might be advisable depending on the season that you're there. We were there during the dry season, so it was a little bit of a shoulder time, and we were able to.
And when you say the dry
there.
season, what month were you there?
They only have 2 seasons.
Yeah.
And let's see. A dry season runs, I believe it's August to December. And then it picks up after that from December through our early summer here. And prices are a little bit lower, but it's more about the availability. You can secure a spot easier. And we secured a couple of spots going to Bartolome, and it was only spot left for the boat. But I would always also ask, what does the boat look like? Can I see a picture of the boat? Because you go to the Malecon, you get on the water taxi, and you see these beautiful, glorious boats out there. And all of a sudden they take you a boat that doesn't quite look like that. One looked like the Staten Island ferry. We got on one, and when we went to Floriana, and it was just that. It was a ferry, and we caught crashing waves that day. Of course, I took Dramamine, and I had a dream when I fell asleep that my wife was thrown from her seat, and when I woke up, she actually did that, and it's still a story we tell that I thought it was all a dream, but I woke up just in time for landing at Floriana. But Bartolome is by far a remarkable experience. You walk up on the platform all the way for that beautiful view of the harbor, and then they take you out to snorkel. And then it's about 2 hours both ways. There is some distance aboard, but when we were doing it, a lot of people were focused on reading their guidebooks, and maybe there is some wave, ebb and flow of the tide there. We were there during the Humboldt current, which the seas are a little rough, but it's nutrient rich, so it brings in a lot of marine life, which is a good time. And I saw eagle rays, I saw whales, and I saw a pod. It had to have been over 100, 150 spinner dolphins where they leap from the water and they spin in the air. And it's just amazing because you see this wildlife that isn't even part of the tour. But if you're not out there looking at the window, you're certainly going to miss it. But
before you get too far away from it, you talked about looking on Viator for getting your tours, and that's certainly something that I do. Both Viator and Get Your Guide are partners of the show, and they happen to be the resources that I use. In fact, if you go to amateurtraveler.com/tours, you get an Amateur Traveler branded Viator site. But the other thing I'll tell you, as long as we're talking about Viator, is I don't know if you know this. Do you know what Viator is named after?
I don't. And I use them all. That's my primary
It is named
platform.
after, and this came as a surprise to me, Saint Viator. They're actually two different saints, but for some reason, the people who founded that company wanted to name it after a saint, and they thought that saint name sounded like something that was tour related, which I think it sounds more like that than it does the name of a saint.
I have to ask you, the saint of what? I thought it was
don't
Saint
think
Christopher.
I know. Yeah, there was no specific, not the saint of day tours or things like that, but maybe he is now. I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, actually, I like that. That sounds interesting, but that is absolutely the platform that I use. I just didn't know how you felt about throwing names out. And by checking that, even before you go on an excursion, you can see what the highlights of a trip or the location are. It is great
and for some of those, you will need to book a couple days ahead at least.
Yeah,
obviously, depending on the availability of the tour, sometimes even further. But yeah.
Yeah, and I would suggest when you book your tour to just go through the checklist. Make sure they include a wetsuit, your snorkel equipment.
Yeah.
Sometimes they don't. A lot of it is extra. And I've seen some tourists on the boat that didn't have the wetsuit. And also try things on too. The mistake I made was I wear a large, and a large in the US is not a large in Ecuador. It's more like a medium. So my wetsuit came up just about to where my shoulder blades are. And during the season that we were there, Chris, the water.
Yeah, the Humboldt Current is a cold water current.
Breathtakingly cold. I have never been in water like that. So snorkeling was, for me, 15 minutes at a time. Then I had to get out and just catch my breath. But there were some people that didn't even have a wetsuit. It was, it can be, you just need to check on all the supplies, make sure everything fits. And if it's not included, they have kiosks where you can rent things like that as well.
Right.
Some people did the feet, the whole, the head and everything, which would not be a bad idea anyway. So that day trip completes day 4 right there. And that's going to give you a taste of life off of the island and give you some exposure to seeing not only marine life, animal life, but the topography of different islands in the area. Let's see, day 5. I would do the half-day bay tour. And that's what it's called if you look on Viator. Or you can just go down near the Malecon and they have little booths set up where you can do that. And you can't do this tour by yourself because they're going to take you through part of the park. And that's where you can go to Las Grietas, where those are the crevices, the cracks between the rock where you can snorkel a little bit. And it's just a beautiful sight to see. I would go there. You take a little water taxi, which takes about 3 minutes to get across, and it's only $1. There's a beautiful resort right there if you want to have a drink or lunch. And then you follow the footpath that's easily marked, and it takes you to Las Grietas, where you can snorkel and take great pictures for your Instagram page. And then Finch Bay Resort, I would suggest as well. And then the tour includes, ask your tour guides for things too. What are we going to see? Are we going to see a blue-footed booby? Because that's one of the iconic birds of the area. And they're just clownish type birds with these giant blue feet walking around like they're clown shoes. But interesting to see. Is there a chance of seeing an albatross? Because a lot of times they'll point things out, which is well worth it. And they're very proud of their training of the Galapagos and to share as much information as possible with you. And then that was the day I was going to do when you come back from Las Grietas, have lunch at one of the hotels that's across there, come back and do the Darwin Research Center so that you would have the later part of the afternoon. There's also a beach out there that you can walk as well. It's about a mile walk down Avenida Charles Darwin, but well worth it. And then again, have dinner at a local place. I always really push them, supporting local.
Sure.
And then
with a major selection of the looks your kiddos love, starting at just $4 in the Walmart app, a new school year means a stylish new them. Who knew? Find skater skirts and Crocs that say, I'm casual but cool. Sparkly sneakers that say, it's my classroom, you're just learning in it. And preppy polos that say, I'm the teacher's pet, even if they're mommy's menace at home. Find their favorite styles starting at just $4 in the app. The Walmart you thought you knew is now new.
This episode is sponsored by Friskies, who would like to tell your cats hi. Now, if that didn't get your cat's attention, there is one thing that always does the trick. Just pour some Friskies crunchy food in the bowl and you'll hear those paws come running. Works every time. With so many Friskies choices, you can always bring your cats running from their secret napping spots. There's always more to explore. See for yourself at friskies.com or visit your local store.
Next day, it's maybe your choice if you want to do Floriana, if you want to do Pinzon or Santa Fe. Some people like to snorkel. Some people like to view wildlife. Some
Hmm.
people like to stroll around town and do the local thing, whatever suits your fancy, because some people really want to see nesting birds. So that would be the day to do what's particularly of your interest. If it was up to me, I would go back to El Chato Tortoise Preserve and do that a second time just because that was a high interest for my wife and I. And then again, you're in town. I wanted to give a plug out to a hotel I stayed at. Very economical, very clean. It's called Hotel Fiesta. And one of the things I liked about this, it was right a couple blocks from wherever you needed to be, the Malecon and Avenida Charles Darwin. One thing that I really liked was it had a huge hot tub. And after spending the day walking around or snorkeling or touring, you really want to come back and just relax. Have a nice dinner, relax, get a good night's sleep so that you can get up and enjoy yourself. It's one of the places on the planet that if you go, you're probably only going once in your lifetime. So you really want to take care of yourself, listen to your body, hydrate, and just thoroughly enjoy where you are. If you look into the history of it, we went on the 150th anniversary on the origin of species.
Mm.
And it was just interesting because he had some celebrations and things like that going that were ongoing. Have you ever read any of the book, Chris?
I have not.
Let me tell you something. If you have trouble sleeping, that would be the book to keep on your bedside. I made it through the part about the Galapagos, which is only about a chapter, interesting enough. Most of his research when I think he was 24 years old. Of course, the book came out decades later and was so controversial, but he refers to the Galapagos so few times in the book. I thought it was all about the Galapagos, but what did I know? So I'll spare you that. But and our last day, before I go through some highlights, our last day is definitely a land your choice day. If I was to do something a second time, it would be Tortuga Bay Beach, just because it's such a pristine beach that when you're there, you feel like you're the only person who's ever seen this beach. It's unlike other beaches, and I've seen many in my life, and it's one of my favorites just to spend the day because you're absolutely sharing it with nature. You're not taking the beach from nature. It completely belongs to the wildlife there. And then anything else you want to see in towns, it would be your last day before flying back to either Quito or Guayaquil. So this would be when you want to get a t-shirt to take home, maybe visit an art gallery, maybe take a tour through town, walk the Malecon at night, and have a nice dinner before your flight the next day, because you will have to compensate for time with getting there ahead of time. Okay, a couple of interesting tips. Everything is so green there in the sense of minding the ecology, even returnable bottles. If you go to the grocer and you want to buy some beer, their return, what do you call the return? 75
The
cents. So
deposit, yeah.
the deposit, yeah. So it's going to encourage you to do that. You're not going to see bottles and cans in the garbage or left out. Just everything is so environmentally sound and mindful of the habitat that's there. It's just very impressive because you come home with a different perspective on life. Make sure you hit, these are the top things for Puerto Ayora, Tortuga Bay, Darwin Research Center, El Chato Tortoise Preserve, Avenida Baltra, and for the local food. The Peninsular Market, that was the market that I was mentioning. Las Grietas, the Bay Tour, Santa Cruz Fish Market, and the lava tunnels, and the open air
Now, you
lava craters.
only made mention of the lava tunnels. You didn't talk about a visit to the lava tunnels.
Yeah, we did. If you hire a cab, just mention those two things. Besides the Tortoise Preserve, mention that you want to go to the lava tunnels and Los Jamales, which are the tunnels that have collapsed. So they've created a couple of craters there. And they will gladly stay and let you go in. The lava tunnels were worth it. Just a couple of bucks to get in.
You're walking in a cave that was created by lava.
Exactly. As the lava cooled, it left this tunnel. But interesting to walk through there. You have to be a little flexible at a couple points, or you can stop at that point and turn around. You have to squeeze through some spots, but it gives you that view from underground. Walking, it is cool, it's damp, but there's electric down there. It's no reason to feel unsafe whatsoever, but not to be missed. Definitely something to witness. And let's see, I think that's it for the main marquee sites of town.
Okay. I want to talk to you a little bit about wildlife. This is obviously a destination that most people go to for the wildlife. So, other than things you've mentioned already, I want to walk through different types of things. So, your most interesting encounter with birds.
Most interesting encounter with birds would have to be, let's see, two of them. The frigate birds
Of
at
the
the
frigate
fish market.
birds.
Yeah, they look like a kite. Absolutely amazing. And then it's interesting to see that the fishermen hold up a scrap of fish and they just swoop down with such precision. They're the ones for your listeners with a large red breast that the males will have. They'll inflate
The
that.
sack that they can inflate to attract the
Yeah,
females. Yeah.
exactly. That,
And
then I
they're
would say,
pirates. They steal other birds'
absolutely.
catch and
Yeah, from each other
as
as
well as,
well.
yeah, exactly.
But if you look at them, it looks just like a kite that someone's flying a kite with a wingspan. Oh, they look almost like an albatross. But the other one I would have to say is if you can see one of the blue-footed boobies, ask to make sure it's included on a tour. When we were in, I have to throw this one out there too. The penguins was a delight.
Oh, sure.
It's one of the animals that you're going to see that we've all seen penguins at a zoo. And that's what separates a Galapagos from something like a
Mhm.
safari in Kenya, Tanzania. You're seeing animals that you've seen at the zoo, but you're seeing them out in the wild, which, not to downgrade that's wonderful in itself, but in the Galapagos, you're seeing animals that you will not see anywhere else. These are endemic species that only live there. The world's only water lizard that primarily lives and makes its living in the water, like the marine iguana.
And then let's go to lizards. Your most interesting encounter with, it's probably going to be iguanas in this case. But
Yeah, I would have to say the marine iguana just because there's so
okay.
many of them and just seeing them all over the place. After the first day, they start to look like squirrels and pigeons to you. You're so accustomed to seeing them at all times. But very interesting. If you go to one of the other islands, each marine iguana has a little different variation. Some are red, some are brown, some are black. Just like Darwin's finches, they all have a specific adaptation to the food source, whether they're eating cacti or they're eating the algae, because they also have land iguanas there as well.
Yeah.
Just like the tortoises, if you want to, again, that's not a lizard, but an amphibian. If you want to lump that into animals,
Sure.
for the next one, yeah. The tortoises, what a highlight. Just the mammoth size.
You said you saw one as big as a Volkswagen bug. Either you have smaller Volkswagen bugs or bigger tortoises than I saw. I think the largest one I saw was 3.5 feet long or something like that. But
I tend to exaggerate when I get excited. It wasn't quite as large as a Volkswagen bug, but what I meant by the size and shape of the Volkswagen
shape,
bug,
yes.
it looked very much like that.
That's fine.
I'll send you a picture where I'm standing in the background and it actually looks like it's 10 times the size of me. But they have two different species of those. They have the saddleback, where the Spanish word for saddle was Galapagos, and then they have the dome shape. That adaptation came from eating lower vegetation. The saddleback has an opening just above its head, so its neck can reach up higher for taller vegetation. But I'd have to say, being in the presence of those animals, being over 100 years old, then even seeing the babies, because now they're reintroducing the tortoises to other islands that they were depleted from the early sailors. Animal-wise, I'd have to say the tortoises and then the sea lion. How can you look back on a kiss from a sea lion and not appreciate that? I will say, when we were at Floriana, we had the chance to see some penguins, and all I wanted to see was one. They wasn't sitting on the ledge, and I stayed out there for as long as I could. My wife got too cold; she came in, looking at dozens of sea turtles, and all of a sudden, this penguin just swims right by me, just like National Geographic. It was amazing. So I came up and I sent that picture to you. You could see the penguin next to me. I have my snorkel mask on, and my wife is pointing to where the penguin is, and I'm waving to her to make sure she saw it, and she already had the camera out and took a picture. And the darn thing swam right over to me like I wasn't even there. And I touched it. It came right to my head. It was just a remarkable experience to be able to be that close to wildlife. So those are my animal encounters.
Now, one last question. So the one thing that I didn't see a lot of in the Galapagos, and I want to set people's expectations, see if you saw different than I did. In terms of colorful fish, it wasn't the most interesting place to snorkel. For me, the Caribbean or Hawaii would have more colorful fish.
Absolutely.
It was the snorkeling with turtles and sea lions and penguins rather than schools of beautiful yellow, red, green, whatever fish that you might see other places. Okay.
I completely agree with you. don't have the variety because it's much deeper.
Yeah,
You don't have the corals, so you don't have the smaller fish. You do see much larger marine life. And I think that's why you go there, is because you're not going to see what I would say somewhat typical parrotfish and those types of fish, the eels and things like that. Yeah.
Even though you're at the equator, it's not, as we said, a warm water experience. It's deeper water,
Very
and there's
much.
not that kind of experience.
It's also the intersection of several different currents too.
Exactly.
And that's why you have the abundance of marine life there, is because when you have a food source, you're going to have predators coming in. But yeah, definitely.
Excellent. I interrupted there. Did you have anything else you wanted to do to wrap up the itinerary before we get to some
Nope, I think I completely covered that.
Excellent. As we get to our wrap-up questions, I think you know what they are. You're standing in the prettiest spot in the Galapagos. Where are you standing and what are you looking at?
I would have to say on the top of the platform at Isla Bartolome, where you see that just quintessential panoramic view, 360 degrees view of the Pinnacle Rock and that area.
Excellent. I feel like you were ready for that question. One thing that makes you laugh and say only in the Galapagos.
Only in the Galapagos, when you have to check your seat to make sure that a seal isn't sitting on it. And you really do, whether it's a lounge chair or even if you're at the Malecon, you're getting on the water taxi to go across. You really have to watch and all they'll do is they'll just bark at you. They're not threatening. But if you come across a mama with her pup, you really have to just be conscious of that.
Excellent. And if you had to summarize the Galapagos in just 3 words, what 3 words would you use?
Okay. First word, obviously wildlife. Just, you're not going to see it elsewhere. There are places that will say the Galapagos of Mexico or the Galapagos of China. This is the real deal. And the wildlife here, it's untamed, unspoiled, and it is just absolutely beautiful. Conservation would be my second word, because it is demonstrated in every aspect of life there, from the way they live, their tourism practices, their agriculture, number of people living there, really on the ball with that. And the last word I would say is fragile. Really makes you appreciate how fragile life can be, because with the introduction of something as simple as like goats to the Galapagos, they have feral cats, they have some dogs here. They have species that are not endemic. They didn't have certain flies and insects, and they're really making an effort to remove that and to go back to how it used to be before our presence there. When you leave there, you oftentimes, at least I can speak for myself and my wife, we think of what life is like in our own community and even your own household, and little practices that you can make to make a big difference.
Excellent.
Yeah.
As we go to wrap this up, we've been talking about budget travel to Galapagos, but just in terms of budget travel, the other resource that I would throw out to people is if you were looking for a tour someplace like the Galapagos, again, this would probably be land-based versus the ones we talked about before. Another good resource is Tour Radar. So that would be for multi-day tours, but they allow you to search multiple different operators all at once. Actually, if you go to amateurtraveler.com/tour radar, that would be the affiliate link for it. But I've used that for different locations, and I see they do have some Galapagos tours for sub $2,000, not counting flights. So something to look at there as well.
Right.
Excellent.
The flight is the flight. You're going to have that no matter, which tour.
No matter where you go. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and there's ways to make that budget friendly too. But I would say that I hope that I accomplished my objective of proving to people that you can do this. You really can. I'm a retired teacher, and I was able to go on this trip, and I'm planning on going back. And it doesn't have to be one of those trips where you're waiting 10 years to finally make that trip. It can be a very affordable, comfortable, safe experience for you that will be a trip of a lifetime for sure.
Excellent. Michael, thanks so much for coming back on Amateur Traveler and sharing with us your obvious love for the Galapagos.
And thank you again for having me. I hope that our paths will cross again someday.
How do you top your love for your cat? With a cascade of decadent savory gravy over a mouth-watering mousse pâté. Fancy Feast gems. 2 gourmet pâtés in 1 convenient pack. Simply peel and plate to reveal a pyramid shape that makes eating delightful and pamper her with an experience as extraordinary as she is. Turn the everyday into the extraordinary with Fancy Feast gems.
This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. Healthcare professionals can lead their careers with LinkedIn. Discover jobs by specialty, preferred shifts, and even desired salary. From mental health therapists to radiology technicians, it's now faster and easier for healthcare professionals to find the right fit. Learn more at linkedin.com/healthcare. Side effects may include faster job placement, improved work-life balance, and increased career satisfaction.
A special thanks to the patrons of the show who help support Amateur Traveler financially. If you're interested in learning more about becoming a patron of the show, go to patreon.com/amateurtraveler. New on the Amateur Traveler blog since the last time we talked is an update for a visitor's guide to Oracle Park, the home of the San Francisco Giants, and a beginning guide to birdwatching in the Peruvian Amazon with pictures of some of the birds that I saw when I was there on my trip with G Adventures. Check those out at amateurtraveler.com. Remember that there are still tickets available for the Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan trip with Amateur Traveler in 2026. Go to amateurtraveler.com/trips to learn more, or just drop me an email. And with that, we're going to end this episode of Amateur Traveler. If you have any questions, send an email to chris2x@gmail.com, or better yet, leave a comment on this episode at amateurtraveler.com. And thanks so much for listening.
Got to see one more cathedral. I got to sit in one